So if you could say your name and what you do.
Okay. My name is Dennis Hennelly, and I'm a filmmaker, director of Bold Native.
So first
Do you
question.
want me to talk to you or the camera?
You can just talk to the camera,
Okay.
but it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's whatever feels natural for you.
I'll probably talk to you.
All right. So how long have you been vegan, and what has shaped you from, being vegan? What's brought you to being a vegan?
Um, I went vegan when I was 18, so I've been vegan for 19 years now, and I actually just began as a bet with myself because a friend of mine was, so I wanted to see if I could do it, and I did it for 2 years before I met somebody that explained to me why you would do it. I just kept doing it though because it made me feel better, like I felt healthier, I had more energy, everything was like, this is great. Then I met her, she explained animal rights to me, I started reading, and then I got involved with, I had philosophical reasons as well as the health reasons. And I think it was easier in a way for me to like hear some of those ethical things because I wasn't eating animals. It's like when you're complicit with the thing that someone's criticizing, when you're doing something and someone says, hey, that's wrong, you're much more defensive about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's one reason like health veganism often leads into like ethical veganism because it lets people like examine it from a more objective viewpoint where they're not one of the actors in the exploitation.
So now that you're kind of part of the animal liberation front, like you've made films about it and such, what would you think about PETA, who has endless amounts of money, and what they do with it compared to the animal liberation front?
Well, the Animal Liberation Front they're basically people that go and do either some sort of economic sabotage or liberation of animals anonymously. They don't hurt anybody, human or non-human, and they do whatever they can to expose any exploitation, meaning they take pictures, they distribute. So basically anybody who does that is a member of the Animal Liberation Front. It's not really something that's financed or funded in the same way. It's just people who are following their own individual conscience. PETA is a huge nonprofit organization whose goal is to educate people about animal exploitation, as well as work for legislation that benefits animals. And like their goals are different. One is to have an immediate impact now on the lives of individual animals, whereas PETA is thinking of more like a systemic change. So, they're not really even comparable any more than like, somebody who goes and like helps a homeless person because they believe in the parable of the Good Samaritan and being a good Christian and helping somebody in need, and the Catholic Church. Yeah. They're like, they have different purposes, and you can criticize the Catholic Church for things that they do, just like you can criticize PETA for things that they do. But the bigger you get, the more likely you are to do things that are worthy of criticism. It's always the way with systems, right?
Yeah.
So I think PETA has made a lot of people vegan. I think it's made a lot of people aware of animal rights issues. I think that they do things that upset and offend people, which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad.
And then, like, how would you reply to people who stop being vegan simply because of doctor's orders, where they're becoming, unhealthy because of it? Should they still further their veganism, or?
So there's this question about ex-vegans and people who feel like they had to give up a vegan diet. Not necessarily the vegan lifestyle, because there's two kind of separate things. The vegan lifestyle is an awareness of animal exploitation, and it extends beyond just the diet to clothing and entertainment and everything else. But the vegan diet, some people feel like they're not getting proper nutrition on it. I don't want to tell anybody that if they're sick, that they're not really sick and it's not being caused by veganism. I'm not a nutritionist, but I do know a lot of nutritionists. I've read a lot on the subject. I've talked to a lot of people. I think people can clearly thrive on a vegan diet. I think, personally, looking at the research, that we're obviously omnivores because we're able to process animal proteins, but I think we tend more towards herbivores in terms of our body structure. There's some people who can't process because of allergies certain foods, and so they're not getting certain nutrients. The thing about meat is that you take all these nutrients from all these different plant-based sources and combine them in a really inefficient but dense package, right? So if you can consume meat, you can get some things that maybe you're allergic to other places. But I feel like most people who leave veganism behind for animal or for their personal health reasons are probably not getting great advice from their doctors. But I know some people, and I've talked to some people who agonized over the choice, were ethical vegans, and eventually decided, well, I guess I need to eat meat. I don't know. I can't be critical of people, but at the same time, I really do firmly believe from the people that I've talked to that are nutritionists and people that I've met that veganism doesn't cause health problems, and that in fact it's less likely to cause health problems than animal-based diets. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it answers my question. And what kind of advice would you give to a young vegan that's only been doing it for, let's say, a few months?
So my advice to a young vegan is would be to try to connect with other people who are vegan and have been vegan. And you can do that through Facebook. You can do that through people that you meet at events, potlucks, vegan restaurants. Learn to cook. That's kind of the most important thing, which you should know how to do anyway. Like, you shouldn't eat all prepared processed foods, regardless of your diet. You should learn to prepare food yourself. And so I would suggest picking up a cookbook. My favorite one is Don't Feed the Bears, which is, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's published by Microcosm Press, which is a small press, governed press, and it's all recipes from death metal bands. So every recipe has a death metal song that goes with it, and but every single recipe in that book is awesome. And it's $8, and that would be the first. And everything is simple and easy to cook with things you can buy at any grocery store. So learn to cook, network with people, and just make sure you eat a lot of different foods and brightly colored vegetables.